Hey guys, Terry Red here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to use the updated all-in-one example table and its tutorial to update a Future Pinball table to get the latest FizX 3.2 physics, fleet mechanical sounds, PUP surround sound feedback, DOF, and ball rolling sounds. Super easy to do. You may have seen an older video that I did on this before that was quite lengthy. So much has changed. It is extremely quick and easy compared to anything we had to do before. FizX has greatly improved since then. And bottom line is we're just going to go through this step by step, just like you normally would. And I'm probably going to split this into two parts. The first video is basically going to be just exactly what you need to do FizX only. Nothing else. If you just want to add only FizX to a table, then that's all you'll need to do. If you want to use the extra and highly recommended optional extra features like the PinMechSounds for DOF, for surround sound feedback, to add that for all the mechanical events throughout the whole table, that will be in a separate video. But we're just going to go through it. It's going to be way simpler than before. And so I guess we're just going to get right into it, guys. All right, so what are we basically doing in this tutorial? Well, basically what we're going to do is we're going to be using this example table in this tutorial, and we'll follow it step by step. And you'll copy basically the code from this table to your new table. You'll add items to your new table, and then you'll change your table so that it's flippers, slingshots, bumpers, and maybe other extra items match how they work on the example table. And as of 3.2 version of FizX, a lot of the work we used to have to do is gone, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, so it's going to be super easy. I'm just going to load this up real quick. So for those who don't understand what we're talking about, Future Pinball physics have been bad traditionally over the years until JLou basically decided to create FizX Physics, which is adapting NFOSI physics techniques used on visual pinball to future pinball. So now the days of future pinball crappy physics are gone, and we can make any table play excellent on future pinball, and it's not hard to do, which is what we're doing in this video. So this example table is, it's just a simple basic example of all the different things. So, you're going to hear all the mechanical sounds for everything in the entire table work now. You're going to hear ball rolling work. You're going to hear, FLEEP sounds everywhere, right? Everything the ball hits will have an appropriate sound based on the material and the speed of the ball, which all automatically works. We don't have to do extra stuff for that. You're going to see the slingshots behaving correctly now. You're going to see the flippers, complete night and day difference. The bumpers are going to behave correctly now. For example, on the older versions of FizX, all the items on the table, so like these rubber posts, for example, these rubber bands, or these rubber bands, or these drop targets, or the regular targets. If we wanted to use FizX Physics with those items, we had to add extra, invisible versions of those items. So extra walls to act as rubber bands, extra rubber posts to act as, different posts, different walls for drop targets, different walls for targets, if you wanted to use the new physics with that. And it was a lot of extra work. Well, as of 3.2 of FizX Physics, we don't have to do that anymore. I say again, we don't have to do any of that anymore. You still have the option if you want to do some really customized physics, but now every rubber on the table will automatically use FizX Physics. Every rubber post, every rubber band, or any surface or wall that's been configured as a rubber automatically works. You don't have to add anything. Drop targets, same thing. Targets, same thing. Basically, the ball knows everything that it's hitting, what kind of material it is, and the physics, the new code, automatically knows how to work with that. So there's no extra work needed by us. It's a huge night and day difference compared to older FizX and compared to NFOSI. Like that's a huge time saver. So I'm just going to play a bit so you can get an idea. So you can hear the ball rolling up. It sounds different on the ramp than it does on the playfield. And the ball rolling is automatic. That's code I added from my pin event tables. So you don't have to do extra stuff throughout the whole table except for the ramps, but we'll talk about that later. So you can see like the table's playing compared to if you've ever tried the Future Pinball example table, the old one, yeah, there's a night and day difference between the two. So you can hear all the sounds of everything it's hitting working automatically. Oh, that sounds great. Almost made it. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick example of what we're expecting here. Same with flippers, for example. Like I'll go down here, for example. The flippers now, you have full control, micro flips, post passing, tap passes, alley passes, live catches, drop catches. All of those are now a thing. Like you can see how much control I have over that, right? So all of that is now on Future Pinball. The old days of Future Pinball, like physics that were like just absolutely terrible, all gone now. All right, and if you like say for example go into bumpers, here I'll just go in there. You can see the bumpers are behaving much better now. So these are all the things that we're going to be basically updating on the table. Okay, so basically you're going to download this as one single file. It's going to have the table, the tutorial, and all the extra files. You'll extract that to your computer. Make sure the file is not blocked before you extract it. Windows may block the file, so make sure it's not blocked for whatever reason. And you're going to basically have files like this. Okay, so this is what we're going to be working with. All right. Now, again, if you download the newest version of my Future Pinball BAM Essentials package, this will also be included with that. You may have to get a newer version to get this newest update, but it's going to be basically in this folder: tutorials and example, and all-in-one table and tutorial, and it should be in there as well. Okay, just make sure you get the newest version. That way you'll know for sure you're using the updated version, because this video could be out of date within a month, right? So basically what you're going to be doing is we're going to be following this tutorial. So that's what we're going to start doing right now. So we'll just read through. I already talked about all this basically of what we're going to be doing. And just a quick blurb of what this won't do. This will not create a pin event table, so that you guys understand. A pin event table is basically my releases, Terry Red's tables or mods or updates that include all the features that I include on tables. Pin event does not equal DOF or SSF or PUP on a Future Pinball table. It's way more than that. So I just want to make people understand that don't use the name pin event, because those are my releases specifically. That's not what this is adding to a table. Okay. So if you want to just some questions. If you want to just add FizX to a table, yes, this is all you need. You don't need anything else. That's you can just do that with this one video. So you don't want to use ball rolling, for example, or you want to use your own method, then you can just disable it. The method we use here, you just disable it and add whatever you want. Super simple. If you don't want to add PUP or DOF support to a table, you don't want to do the extra work for PinMechSound commands or anything like that. Again, like I mentioned before, that's all optional for things like the mechanical sounds for the flippers, the slings, the bumpers, the kickers, drain. That's all optional. I highly recommend you do it, but it's optional. All right, so this is basically describing what everything is. FizX, I just described what all that was. The FizX Tweaker tool is going to be a DMD that can display that you can use to adjust settings in real time. You don't have to use it, but it's an optional feature that you can add. FLEEP sound. So what FLEEP sound is basically it's a guy named FLEEP who recorded all the mechanical sounds throughout a pinball table, and he's recorded high quality sounds, multiple samples of each type of sound. So multiple of the left flipper, multiple of the right flipper, multiple of the slingshots, and every time a sound gets activated, whether it's a ball hitting something or any of these other mechanical events, it randomly changes the sound up each time. So it's much more dynamic, and that's what FLEEP sound, that combined with code, is how it works. DOF, well, that's basically if you have a cabinet, that's feedback for things like solenoids. So when the flippers go, it actually fires a solenoid in your cabinet. Same with slingshots, bumpers, lighting, and other stuff like that. All right. And pinup player. So pinup player is used for things like displaying extra videos or modern text or sounds, media on a separate screen, but in this case we're using it for just surround sound feedback and ball rolling. Now, what is surround sound feedback? Surround sound feedback is basically where if an item on the table plays a surround sound feedback sound, it will play it from the position where it is on the table. So if you have, say, a sound system set up with 5-1 surround sound, then the flippers will be more towards your rear. The bumpers will be more towards your front center. The kicker will be to your left. You know, this flipper will be to your right. So if you have a cabinet with feedback exciters inside that play these sounds, then you'll get positional sounds inside your cabinet. So it'll sound like all these things are actually inside your cabinet. So it benefits everyone, whether you have stereo sound, 5-1 sound, or you have a cabinet with exciters. Everyone benefits from surround sound feedback. And Future Pinball sounds, those are basically just the normal sounds that the table would play directly from Future Pinball. All right. So what this code does is it manages all that so that it will use one or the other automatically based on what you've enabled or disabled in the settings. And PinMechSound, well, that's basically what I just mentioned. That's my own code and command that I used in pin event tables, and I've added this here so that way it can manage all the sounds for everything on the table, including the FLEEP sounds that are used for everything, or the Future Pinball sounds, and the DOF and the surround sound feedback. It manages all that at the same time. All right, so that's basically what all that stuff is. Okay, I've yapped long enough about what we're going to do, so we're going to start actually doing it now. So we're going to start here, obviously. So it's important to understand that this tutorial is meant to be followed in order, step by step. Very important. The code is designed that way. The tutorial is designed that way. So don't skip steps, guys. Okay. We have two main sections. We have the required section, which is everything we need for FizX only. Specifically FizX, maybe a couple other features, but they go along with FizX, all right? The optional sections are if you want to have, for example, the FizX tweaker tool, or if you want to add extra rubber bands or extra walls or things like that. That's what that's for, but they're not required. All right. Same thing goes for the PinMechSound. If you want to add the extra code and support for, you know, SSF, DOF, and better FLEEP sounds for flippers, slings, you know, bumpers and everything else, that's optional as well. All right. So again, that's going to be a separate video. All right. So one thing a lot of people don't know about is debug mode in Future Pinball. So to do that, you basically have to launch the table with F9. Okay. By doing so, then you'll see lots of text here. Actually, I'll just do it real quick. So by doing so, you'll see lots of text and other things show up that will, you know, help you know what's going on. Only if the table's code added that stuff in there, which we did in this example code. So you can see everything's going on. It's telling you what's going on, what's happening, what sounds are being played, what, you know, what's being hit, you know, what rubbers are being hit, all sorts of stuff right now. So again, very, very handy. It can be used for lots of stuff, but if you're running into problems, it's very, very helpful. All right. All right. All right. So the first thing we have to do is we have to make sure our table is prepared, the table we're updating. Bottom line is we need to be a plain Jane Future Pinball table. Nothing specialized added to it at all whatsoever. So that means if there was older physics, you know, added to it, whether it be code or specific models, for example, FizX use different flipper models, all that has to be put back to like just normal, you know, or removed. If it has any older ball rolling methods, like, you know, like smoke ball rolling methods, works great, nothing wrong with it. But what we've done is we've combined a portion of Smoke's code with Nailbuster's ball rolling code and made it work as an automatic ball rolling code. So you don't have to manually add things throughout the table's code to make it work. This will just automatically work. When a ball gets created or destroyed, it just will work on the fly, no problem, for most tables. And it'll work for Future Pinball sounds, for ball rolling, and for PUP SSF as well, depending on which one you have enabled. So you have to remove the older Smoke timer and ball rolling code. DOF links code. So if a table has that, that's the older methods we use to support to add DOF to Future Pinball. We don't need to do that anymore because we're adding it directly ourselves now with this new code. That's what the PinMechSound command is doing. It's adding DOF support directly as well. So if the table has it, not many of them do, but if the table has DOF links code, you need to remove it because it will conflict. So make sure that's gone. all the table items basically just have to be correct. So basically, if you have rubber items on the table, their materials should be set to rubber. If it's a wood item, it should be wood. Metal should be metal. And that's like if it has the option to material type here, right? Because you can have those set. Uh, Same thing goes for models on the table, like things like triggers or bumpers or targets or anything like that. By default, they should be set correctly, but and you can't change those settings here in Future Pinball. You have to change that in the Future Pinball Model Editor, which is a separate program. By default, most tables are fine, but just so you understand that they should be set correctly, in case the table did do something custom. Because you might have some things that act weird and you don't know why, and then you find out, oh, well then this metal item is acting as a rubber, for example, and that could be the reason why. Most tables should be fine, but just so that you're aware of that. So basically, you want to make sure all of that is done. Table is working perfectly before we go any further. I cannot stress that enough. Do not go any further until that's been completed. Okay, so we need a working plain Jane Future Pinball table. All right. So in our case, we're going to be updating Rom's classic Knight Rider table. This is a pretty good example. It doesn't have anything specialized added to it, except for the bumpers, but I'll show you how we'll take care of that when we get to the bumpers section. It's not essential at this point, but it doesn't have any specialized physics code or flippers or other stuff on it. So this is a good example, a simple one to update, so. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. And yeah, I've already checked the table ahead of time, so it's plain Jane and it's ready to go. So this is what we're going to work with in this video. All right, so next step is section 2, installing the files. Well, we've already done that, right? You download the file and make sure it's not blocked by Windows, and then you extract it to a temporary location, that you'll use for a regular basis. Or if you get the latest version of my Future Pinball BAM Essentials all-in-one package, then you should see it included in this folder here, like in the main Future Pinball folder, tutorials and examples, all-in-one example table and tutorial, and it should all be in there as well, okay? So just wanted to make sure you guys understood that. The 1K FizX ball. So by default, that should already be installed if you've done Baller Installer or you installed my Future Pinball BAM Essentials all-in-one package. That's basically default zip here. So all we've done is, copied it to that location and renamed it. Again, that came from this location here. It's only if you don't have it installed. It's just this file, same file. It's just the ball model, the Future Pinball default ball model. You're just using all the polygons of that ball model by copying this over and naming it default zip. Because the idea is anything in the BAM, if it's in the BAM folder or BAM Open VR folder, anything in default zip is basically the default resources that Future Pinball uses for every single table. And that's all we're doing is we're just replacing the ball model with one that's configured to use all polygons. And that's all that is. All right, so PUP SSF PUP pack. So if you are going to be using Pinup Player, if you have it installed and you want to, support PUP SSF or PUP, if you want to support PUP SSF on the table, then you need to make sure you have the PUP pack that this example table uses. So that would be in here, PUP SSF files. So as it says, you copy this to your PUP videos folder, which I've already done, and I'll just show you here. So that's in my vPinball folder, Pinup System, PUP videos, and there you go. You can see it's already in there. All right? All right. So now that's basically all our items, all our files installed that we need. Okay, so now we're at the step where we start updating our actual table. So first thing we have to do is add all the items we need to the table, whether it be the models, sounds, and the textures. Super simple. So you basically go to Import Models from the Model Manager. Click Import. And in this case, I've already gone to it, but it's our all-in-one example table and tutorial folder, and you'll find FizX models. So if you go in there, you have 3 folders. Everything in there needs to be added. Okay, so go into Bumper, select them all, add that. and then we go to Rubber, select them all, add that, and then we go to Slingshot, select them all, add that. All right. And now we have all our models added. So now we need to import all the required FLEEP and ball rolling sounds, okay? So there's the ones that are absolutely required to work with FizX, and there's extras that only if you need to add them, but that's not required. All right, so we go to Sound Manager first, and we're going to import, and we got to find our way to where those files are located. So in my case, it's here. So FLEEP sounds, and then one required sounds. Add the Sound Manager, right? So now you're going to see multiple folders. The reason why this is the case is because Future Pinball labeling only adds 30 files at a time. If you try to add more than that, it'll just ignore the files and won't import anything. It's a very, very dumb bug. So I basically separated them all into separate folders. Thanks for the idea there, Gimli. All right, so then you go, we'll just keep doing that for each one. Just add every file, and it only takes seconds, guys. You know, I do not use library files because library files are a pain in the ass. They can cause problems or can get mixed up. It's just not worth it. It's easier to update this, and then that way it's way more flexible, I guess is the way I'm trying to explain it. It literally only takes seconds, guys, you know, and if you know, just go through one at a time, select them all. All right. All right, and that's it. And hit OK. And then now, the next one is, the music files. So you need the ball rolling file. So that's going to be Music Manager. Hit Import. All right, so we'll go back to our FLEEP Sounds folder. And then now, required ball rolling sounds, add to Music Manager. And then you're just going to have a small number of files here, add those. All right, there you go. So now we import our invisible textures. So, well, I've already done that, but if you go to the main all-in-one example tutorial folder, go to invisible textures, and then just choose both. It's just, they're both the same file basically, but just in case some items use one or the other, it's good to make sure you have them on your table. And that's for items that we won't want to be visible while playing. All right. And now that's all our items added to the table. Okay, so we also have to add one more thing. Forgot to mention that. You have to add a timer for the ball rolling function. So that's simple. You just click timer, add it here, and just make sure it's named the same as this. No, I didn't want that. Ball rolling update timer. So a way to do that is just highlight the text and go onto there. Just be careful. Make sure there's no spaces at the beginning or end. You know, that's a common problem when you do copying and pasting. And there you go. So that's all there. All right. So now all the files and all the items, the files and items are added to the table. So now we can get ready to start adding actual FizX to the table now. All right, so now we're here to start what we came here for, which is to start adding FizX physics. So the first thing we need to do is we have to start adding the code from our example table to this new table. So easy way to do that would be to just, where's that table? Get over here. There you are. So just move this guy to the left, all right? And then what it's recommending you do is you copy a section of code from the example table to your new table. All right, so what we do is we open up the script from our example table, and this is where we're starting based on what it tells us, right? It's telling us copy everything from start here to end here. All right, so it's very simple. What I do is I just go like this. I highlight end here. Okay. And I just go right to the table script. Instead of trying to figure out where this starts and ends, what I do is I just search for end here, okay, with no quotations. All right, and then I just go Boom. That's it. Now it went all the way down to the bottom of where we're going to have to select everything. Now, why do I start at the bottom? Super simple. I just click into here. Then I hold down left shift, or right shift, I guess. And then while holding shift, I push the up arrow keys, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold down page up. And then so you hold down shift, and then you push page up, and you keep page up held down until it goes all the way to the top of the table. And then you'll notice you just push arrow, you keep shift held down and you push the arrow down, and there we go. So super quick and easy way to figure out where to start and where to end. Just start at the bottom and work your way to the top, and then you just copy that code. So what it tells you is the all-in-one example code must start under option explicit on your new table. So we're going to open up the script on our new table, and look at that. Excuse me. Option explicit is right at the top. Excuse me. Right at the top. Give me a moment here. I gotta have something to drink. That's better. All right, sorry guys. So we're gonna paste it under option explicit. Now it's better to do it right at the top of the table. It just makes everything so much easier, especially if there's any kind of conflicts, right? So all you gotta do now is just paste. Boom. There you go. All our example table code is now copied over. All right, so that's done. So Newton physics tick. So this is something that most older tables will have nothing at all with. This is more of a newer thing for tables updated to use BAM features. It's basically a subroutine that is in sync with the physics on the table. Now in our case, it's 512 times per second with FizX. That subroutine is being updated. But in this table's case for Knight Rider, it doesn't use that subroutine at all. So if you look here, sub Newton physics tick, right? So this is the end of the code. If you go to the bottom, where are you here? Oh, actually, sorry. If you go to, well, actually, you can just do a search. All right. So sub-Newton's physics tick, that's this guy right here. So what it's trying to tell you here is if the table has this sub and has code inside its own sub, then you need to merge them both into one. Okay, that's all this is talking about. Most old tables won't have this, but some newer ones might. So you just make sure that all the code is merged into one sub-Newton physics tick. That's it. That's all that's telling you. All right? All right. In this case, we don't have to worry about it because this table, you just keep searching, and no, this table doesn't have any, so you don't have to worry about it. All right, the next section. So what we want to do is we add DOF and PUP close. That's super simple. It's all that's for is just to make sure that PUP and DOF close out correctly. So all you do is you go to Future Pinball and Play. Again, use the find tool here. It's super easy, right? All right, so this is what we're going to be adding to it, right? So you just keep going until you find it in your table. There you go. The sub, Future Pinball, and Play. Most tables have nothing in there. So what we just want to add DOF close and PUP close. I mean, you can just, again, do a copy and paste. Super easy way to do it. Control C, Control V. Okay? If you don't have these in there, it's not the end of the world, but if you are supporting DOF and PUP SSF, when you exit the table, this makes sure they close out correctly, or at least tries to make sure they close out correctly. All right? All right. Okay, so now that we have our PUP code installed, now we can check through some of the general settings that you would do in the table. So one you want to check is our table slope. So what we do is we just check that under our FizX general settings. So the easy way to find that would be, again, do a copy and Control F, and then you can just paste that in there, and then boom, there you go. It's right there. Picture to give you an example of what you're looking for. So this is a subroutine that has all the general settings for FizX. So this is basically stuff that is not flippers is basically the best way to describe it. So this is going to be for your slingshots, for playfield stuff, for table slope, ball material, drop targets, and rubbers. Okay, or regular targets as well. So we don't really need to change much in here for now. But the one thing you want to check is the table slope. Okay, so understand what this is doing is this is actually overriding the normal slope in the editor. So if you go to the Future Pinball editor and you make sure you're in the main table options here, and here, I'll turn the glossiness down. That'll look like crap. So the table slope by default is at 7.5 on older Future Pinball physics because that was a way to try to make the ball look heavier than it was, but it didn't work very good. So that's why a lot of tables will have a very high slope. With FizX, that's now configured here, and it will override this setting. So changing this will have no effect when we're using FizX because it's now set to here. So don't necessarily go by real world values. I recommend starting at 5.3 as a good default, and you can go between, I would say, 5 and 6. Play around with what you feel is the best, but this is a good value to start with. So nothing. You don't really have to do anything unless you want to change that value, but start with this first. Okay. All right. So now we're coming to the big one. This is probably the most important thing to get right. So now we have to update our flippers. So to do that, we have to update their names in the editor and their names in the main tables code. Not part of the FizX code, but the actual tables game code. So this is important that we have to make sure this is right. It's a little different than older FizX. Most Future Pinball tables, by default, will have the main flippers just as left flipper and right flipper. With 3.2 or higher, we have to change this to left flipper 1 and right flipper 1. And if you have extra flippers on the table, you would then change those. In this case, we have 2 up here. This would be left flipper 2 and right flipper 2. But for now, the important one is left flipper 1 and right flipper 1. So the best way to do that is first change that here. And then what I would do is, and you also have to, you have to change it for right flipper 1 as well. Okay? But that's not enough. We have to change it in the command, the script as well. So I show an example here where we have to look for the old name and we have to change it to be from left flipper to left flipper 1. So easy way to do that is just go to the script. You can have the script go over here, for example. And what I do is I go basically to the bottom of your FizX code. So you can just look for FizX physics system end. That's the easy way to do it. And I click into there. So this means we're going to start from here down. We don't want to go through the FizX code because, well, we're not changing that. And it's extremely important you guys do not change anything in there. So what we want to do is we want to replace. Okay? So what I do is I put left flipper 1 with a dot at the end. Very important. And then I go left flipper 1 or left flipper with a dot. So what I'm looking for is any instance of that, and we're going to replace it with that. So there's 2 codes usually that are used, solenoid on and solenoid off. We have to replace the name of all flippers that, now have to use the new FizX name, okay? So the easy way to do that is I go find next. So here's the first instance. So all I do is now we're going to replace left flipper dot with left flipper 1 dot. So I just hit replace. And then the next one, be careful. So make sure it's correct, like something you should be replacing. Replace. And then you have solenoid off as well. So again, we're going down. This is not the main FizX code. Okay, it's very important that you pay attention. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing that, and I've done it for every single one. You notice that where it scrolled down to, the FizX code is up here, right? So we just kept going down, and there's no other instances. That's why it's making that sound when I try to look for it. So now those have all been replaced. Okay, so now we have right flipper 1. All right, so we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to try to replace that one as well. Okay, so again, I go to the bottom of PhysiX System End, click in there, and then we're going to replace every instance of right flipper dot with right flipper 1 dot. Okay, by putting the dot, it makes it easy to find the commands we're looking for because it's solenoid on, solenoid off. So we'll hit find next. There you go, right flipper solenoid on, and then solenoid off. And I'm just going to keep doing each one. There you go. That's as far as it goes. There's no more of those. And that's it. Now that's the main flippers, okay? So we are also supposed to do the secondary flippers here. So we can do that as well. In fact, actually, we'll do that. So the idea there, I won't show the whole thing, but I'll show you the same idea. It's basically just replacing the name. All right, so you go there, and you might have to change the layer a bit so you can find the darn things. Let's see, where are you? Where did you go? Okay. All right, so in this case, we want to replace the old name of that one, which is our left, with a dot. And then we're going to replace that with left flipper 2. All right. So you have to be careful because you want to make sure you're replacing the right names correct. So left flipper 2. So find next. So there you go. So we're going to replace that one, and we're going to do the same thing. Okay, same idea as we did for the other one. We're going to replace every single solenoid on and off command. And now that those are all done, we name this left flipper 2, okay? Make sure it's good in case for some reason that name was already used, right? You got to pay attention to the naming of everything. And same thing with this guy over here, flipper upper right. So we'll just do the same thing. And I'll just go back up here again. All right, FizX System, just go right under there. And we're going to change that to right flipper 2. And make sure they both have a dot at the end. Start here, find next. And then there you go, you can see it. Solenoid on, so we're going to replace all the solenoid on and off commands in the main game code. Again, not in the PhysiX code. There you go. And that's it. So that's all we had to do to update our flipper names. Oh, I have to actually make sure I change this one to right flipper as well. So, so right, hold on, flipper 2. There you go. And that should be good. All right. There you go. Okay, so another thing we forgot that we have to do is we have to actually update the settings of the flippers themselves. So basically what you want to do is you want to have them match what the example table is using as a starting point, right? So let's just look at the example table. All right, so if you look at the flipper here, we want to have the start and swing angle be similar, and the elasticity and the strength just as a starting point. Okay, so if we look at our new one, okay, so ironically they're both almost identical. Wow, that's a shocker. Okay, so we want our start angle to be 120 to start, and then we'll start at -48. Okay, because now that we have PhysiX, you don't need to use crazy unrealistic angles anymore. That was a way of working with Future Pinball's older PhysiX, but now you want it. This is the way real tables are set up for flippers. This is how they're supposed to be set up. And then same idea on the right flipper. So 240 and 48. So 240 and 48. And 48. You can see, like, look at the left and the right flipper. Like, look at the difference. That's a huge difference compared to how a realistic flipper angle is set and how the table was originally set, right? So now the elasticity, again, that's not required. You can have it however you want, but you're going to have our flipper settings in the table code as well that you can adjust, right? So this is a good starting point. You want to kind of keep it here and then make changes in the PhysiX Flipper settings in the table code, which we'll come to later on. And same thing, we'll probably want to do that with these guys as well, right? So maybe, put it in the center and then similar. Now again, you can like adjust it. Like, like you can have, for example, this between like minus 48 and minus 50 or 52, right? Because there may be some use case situations where you might want to have that. So let's just do the same thing. So that's 240 and 48. And there you go. And have him in the center as well. So center soft, center soft. All right. There you go. So yeah, so I think that's our flippers actually updated and ready to go. So now we can carry on to the next part. All right, so that portion is done now. So our flippers are updated. That's all there is on this table. And so that portion is done now. So now we have one more thing we have to do for flippers. And we'll do that right now. That's going to be the flipper nudge commands. So basically, you don't have to add this, but if you want to have flipper nudging, and what flipper nudging is basically when the ball is rolling down along a flipper here, if you tap the opposite flipper rapidly, the idea is that the mechanical movement of the solenoid will make the ball roll back more towards the opposite so the ball doesn't roll off the flipper. So that, you see a lot of pro players play it. So it's a cool feature that a lot of people like having. So that's a new feature with FizX. So to do that, all we got to do is add a command to solenoid on command. So what I do is I just go to the example table, and then basically you want to look for left flipper 1. If I got that right, I don't think I do. Left flipper 1 with a dot. Okay, now notice this is in the FizX code. We don't want that. We want to go to the actual main table code. So that's where the example is going to be for the flipper nudging. Okay, we'll just scroll down, FizX system end. So we'll find left flipper dot. There we go. So you're looking for left flipper 1 dot solenoid on. So the idea is you want to add this command here, lf flipper nudge equals 1. Okay, you can see right here, it's telling you that's needed for FizX. So just copy that and do the same thing to your table here. So I know this seems like it takes a while, but we'll get her. All right. So again, left flipper 1 dot. So we already found it right away. So this is our subroutine for when we press a key pressed. If the flipper key has been pressed, it's going to turn the flipper on, right? So basically, you just add this command above it, and that's it. Now in this case, we have the right one right here, so we can just do the same thing, and it's just right flipper, and that's it. You just add that one command before the solenoid on command for your left and right main flipper, and you're good to go. Now you could try going out and doing it for upper flippers and that as well. It depends on how the table code and everything else, but I usually just do it for the main flippers down here, and that's it. And that's it. That's all we need for flipper nudging. Yeah. And there you go. I think that's, yeah. All right. So we're now at the point where we've added everything we need for the main section of code and flippers. All right. So at this point, I recommend saving the table to a new name. Okay. Do not start the table yet. All right. So in this case, I'm just going to call it Knight Rider FizX. Okay. All right. So now we've had all our main chunk of code and items added. We've updated our flippers as we're supposed to, and we've saved it to a separate file name. So that way we can get ready to do our first test. All right, so we come to a big crucial point in this whole process. So up to this point, you don't want to run try running the table up until now, because if you tried running the table before now without updating without copying the code and then updating the flipper names in the editor and the tables code to match with what we need for FizX, then you'll get an error similar to probably something like this, right? So again, at this point, you shouldn't have done anything until all that is done. So once all that is done, now what we can do is we can save it to another file name if you haven't already, just to be sure, a different file name. Each time you do a major change in a table, I highly recommend saving it to another file name. If you screw it up really bad, you can always fall back to your previous one, right? So it's possible we may have conflicts before we test, all right? So sometimes, the variables or dims or constants that are declared in the table may be similar or the same to what we use in the FizX or the all-in-one example tables code. And the bottom line is you have to change your table to work. You don't change the all-in-one example code, okay? So you have to solve any of those before you can go any further, because it just won't work, right? So that's what you do at this point. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it one test to see. And you may have other errors. Maybe you screwed up something in the process when you pasted something or whatever. And oh, well, geez, looks like I actually did that. Okay, so 3465. Let's see what's going on with that. All right, so let's take a look then. I could have done a typo. All right, so 346. Oh, actually, I'm already right here. Okay, so 346. Oh, look at that. Okay, so I don't know if that was a screw up on my part or if something somehow got added in when I pasted it in, but you can see there's a slash there that's not supposed to be there. Okay, it's a red slash. That's not correct, so remove that. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I won't edit that out because you never know. You guys might run into that. So here, I'll just resave the table again, and then we'll give it a quick go here. It can happen, guys. It absolutely can happen. Oh, there you go. All right. All right, good. All right, so now we know that we've got our main code copied in and our flippers are set up correctly. Now, if you tried running the table right now, it may work very wrong, because there's other things we still have to do. Don't worry about that. I'll show you an example. Like, it might run fine, it might not. Like, the ball might not pop out correctly. We'll get around to all that. So if it doesn't work correctly, don't worry about it. But, looks like I lucked out. But you'll see, like, the flippers will be correct. They're working, micro flips. All that's working good, nice and powerful. So that's all good. But, the other things like the slings are not updated correctly yet, so we have to get around to that. The bumpers need to be updated. Other things might not work right, like the kickers may or may not. So yeah, so you can see right there, that kicker was not quite right. So all that stuff, we have to do afterward, okay? So don't worry if the table's acting a little wonky. That's normal at this point, guys, okay? So, all right. So there you go. First test, and we're up and running. So now we can carry on. All right, so the next section is, well, actually, we kind of don't really need to do this, but it's basically telling you if you want to change any settings for your flippers, you do that in the FizX code. So, because we've already made the changes that we need to in the editor, right? So if you go here, so if you don't know where to find that, again, you can just, let's see here, yeah. So FizX Flipper setting, again, you can just do like kind of like a copy and paste to find it easy, right? So just do that, and then Control F, and then we'll just see if we can find it that way. Oh, maybe not, hold on. Okay, it's probably got an extra space in there. All right, here, it's gonna be near the top. I'll tell you that right now. Let's see here. Let's see here. There you go. All right. FizX Flipper setting. Yeah, I wonder why it's different. Interesting. Okay. Actually, I'm curious now. Huh. Yeah, it's weird why it's not finding that. Sometimes code search can be a little weird that way. So basically, here it is. This is what you're looking for. So when you go to the beginning of FizX Physics System at the top there, it's near the top of your code. This is where you're going to find your flipper settings, okay? So we have two profiles that you can choose between. We used to use those for, you know, major different profiles, but we kind of don't really need that much anymore. So there's only two profiles if you want to have a custom one to kind of compare back and forth if you want, but it's not really needed anymore to have additional profiles, but they're still there if you want. So the idea is you have a subroutine, FizX Profile 1 settings, and we're set to Profile 1. So all these settings in here are what is used for the table, okay? So your main flippers here, this is everything that's set for them. And then if you have additional flippers like left flipper 2 and 3 or 4 if you have that many, right flipper 2, 3 or 4 if you have that many, then that's their settings here, okay? So we only have a second set of flippers. So what you can do is you can get rid of, if you want, you don't have to, left flipper 3 and left flipper 4, okay? Just to make it a little tidier. And right flipper 3 and 4, all right? You don't have to do that. It's totally up to you. And same thing with the second sub there. If you want to remove that, boom. So you have only left flipper 2 and then right flipper 2, okay? There you go. All right, so bottom line is the base settings are pretty good. We've got them dialed in pretty good, but you may have unique situations where smaller flippers need to act differently. You know, you may have different shaped flippers, for example. Who knows what? You know, so their settings are all right here, and they're all explained with each one. Most of these you don't have to touch at all. You really don't. But the main ones that you're probably going to change are the flipper omega and the flipper mass. So the idea is a flipper omega is basically the strength at the base here, okay? The main strength of the flipper right here. So if you want to have it where you're hitting the ball off here and you want the ball to be a lot stronger, like flying much further, then you would increase this, right? Flipper mass is basically the progressive mass and strength towards the rest of the flipper. It's kind of like the tip strength, but it's a little different than it was on older FizX physics. So those are the two settings. You want omega here and mass for the rest of the flipper, all right? And you can adjust those as needed, but you know, it depends on the table. Like if you're having a hard time getting up a ramp, for example, then you can adjust that, make it more stronger. Yeah, you'll have to play around with that. These are like for the bounce settings for like say off the rubbers, for example, how the ball behaves when it goes along the rubber of the flipper. The flipper nudge strength, that's again what I talked about when the ball's rolling towards the edge of the flipper. If you tap the other one, then it'll move the ball back. All right. So yeah. So let's just do now that we're up and running, we can do a quick test and then maybe make a change if we need to. All right, so let's just see if the flipper has the strength to get up that ramp there, because it might not. All right, I'm using ball controller in case you're wondering what's going on. All right, so it's getting around that okay, but I want to see if I can get it up the ramp. Forgive me, I'm not very good with the gamepad. Oh, jeez. Okay. Oh, there you go. Oh, don't mind me for a second. Okay, Google, stop. My Google is alarming me. All right, so here, I'm going to just turn this down a little bit. Let's just see if we can actually get up there. Okay, so it can barely get up there, right? So that's a good example where you may want to increase it. So, you know, let's put it to 70. All right, and then I'll save my table again. And then we'll try it again. All right. So let's just go all the way around here. Oh, there we go. So let's see if that has an easier time. Oh yeah, much easier. There you go. So that's something you may have to play around with per table. It depends on the angle of the ramps or other things, but you know, you have to take the time to adjust that. And again, you can always come back to these at any time and adjust them however you need to. no problem. So don't stress too much over it if it's not playing perfect right away, because you have the rest of the table that you still have to adjust, right? So again, this is the kind of the big one here. All right. So once your flippers are okay and you're mostly happy with them for the time being, then you can move on to the next section here. Okay, so we come to the next section now, which is updating the slingshots. Now, this is very, very important. You know, as I mentioned at the beginning, FizX is not just, you know, better flippers, right? FizX is the entire table's physics being updated. And Future Pinball's slings are terrible, okay? That every time the ball, you know, rolls down, it tends to fire off, and or if it hits the sling at all, instead of it, you know, hitting downward or upward as it's supposed to, it almost always flies upward. And with it's super sensitive. No, they're terrible. So we need to update the slingshots, all right? They're not hard. It's not hard to do at all. So what I would recommend doing at this point is I would open, see, now you know we have our example table here, right? So what we want to do is we want to copy the items from the example table here, but we can't do it when it's in a separate Future Pinball window. So what you do is you open up the example table in the same session as your table update. So what you do is, so I'll just reopen it again. All right, so now they're both in this same session, right? So you can switch back and forth between them anytime you want, right? So what we do here is we're just going to add the FizX items that we want onto our new table, right? So in this instance, we're going to be doing the sling diverters, all right? So the sling diverters are new, like they're basically two diverters that are going to act like our sling instead of having the rubber do the action, because the rubber is what doesn't work very good, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to update the slings with the new diverters, okay? So basically all we do is we go to the example table and we select our two diverters. You might have to change things up so you can actually see them better. There you go. There's two of them there. All right, and you'll see it's a sling diverter 1, sling diverter 2. All right. So what I do is you can always unlock them if that's easier for you, but I do a copy, and then I go to my new table, and then you just hit paste, and there you go. Now they're not going to line up, so that's fine. You know, every table is different. So all I do is I grab both and I just bring them over here. That's kind of all you got to do. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure that this, you see the rubber is right here, right? The rubber band. You want the slings to be slightly behind the rubber band. All right, just a little bit, because we want the slings to do the action. Maybe move it up a little more. Action, but we want the band to do the triggering. Like when the ball hits the band, that will make these actually activate, okay? Now, you can adjust these angles a little bit if you need to, and you can adjust the size if you need to. You know, like, because we imported multiple ones, so you have, you know, different size of slingshot models that we can use, right? So just make sure they're kind of lined up as best you can with the actual, you know, solenoid arm that would shoot out normally. And pretty much like this is okay. You can always come back and readjust this if you have to. And then, again, they have to be sling diverter 1 and sling diverter 2. And then we'll do the same thing for the other side. Lock. I'll just copy, and then I'll go here. Now, the reason why you do it this way is because then, because we've already added all the models to the table, it's automatically going to use the same models, right? When I say the same models, I mean the same diverter models or anything else, you know, that you copy in a similar manner. And there you go. You can just kind of make sure that, you know, they're lined up pretty good on the posts and that the intersection is like that for each one, okay? There you go, just slightly behind the rubber. And you might have to adjust the angle to make them line up better, but in this case it worked out pretty good actually. There you go. All right, and again, sling diverter 3, sling diverter 4. They have to be named, you know, sling diverter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, the naming is extremely important. All right. So that part's done. So now the only other thing we really have to do for the diverter portion is copy over the code. And this is why I use the example table so that because you have to go to these areas, right? So you have to see how it works. So that's why I prefer using the example table instead of trying to throw stuff into a notepad or anything like that, because you guys have to see how this stuff works. So what I do is I go to the example table and I just go to the Slingshot Rubber subroutine. So again, that's the name of the rubber here, left Slingshot Rubber. So that's the subroutine. So we're going to copy the FizX commands from here into our table here. So same idea. Now every table is different. So don't assume the names are always going to be the same, right? Left Slingshot Rubber, so we're fine there. So I just kind of do it this way. Oh, that's why. All right. So sub left, and I just find my way to that Slingshot Rubber. There you go. All right. Okay, so we want all the FizX commands. So there's going to be these two commands at the top. All right. And we'll have those play at the be used at the very top of the subroutine, just like it's telling you here. And then you want the ones at the bottom. So that's going to be these ones. Again, they're all labeled as FizX, right? So that's how you know which ones they are. So we'll select all those, and then those go at the very bottom. So the idea of what this is doing is it's forcing the rubber to not activate when the ball hits the rubber. Like the ball will hit the rubber and then this subroutine gets run, but we're saying no, rubber, don't fling the ball out. Instead, we're going to check how fast the ball is actually traveling, and if it's traveling fast enough, then we will actually activate the diverters. Is basically how that's working. And then we'll also have the rubber fire at the very end, because the diverters are doing the actual acting, and then this is acting more for a visual on the table, okay? And then you do the same idea for the right one. And you would do this for any other slings on the table. It might not just be the two, right? You might have other ones, and you have to make sure the names for everything are matching with what, for the item that you're making them work with, right? So just pay attention to your naming. And there you go. All right. And that's all we have to do for the actual sling, for the slings. For the actual diverter portion. There is extra stuff we can do, and we will do, but this is just to get the slingshot working correctly, okay? So what you want to do is you want to look at the example table, look at its rubber band settings. So you notice the slingshot strength is set to nothing, right? So we want to do that here as well. We want to do the same thing on ours. So we want to make sure that they are set to nothing. All right. Do that. There you go. So that way they're not going to actually bounce the ball back at all. Ball's going to hit the rubber, and then these are going to fire off and then make the ball shoot out. So I would save. Again, you could save to a different file name if you want, and then give it a quick test. All right, so I'll turn that sound up a little bit. Here, I'll turn up the sound. All right, so let's just see if they'll work. All right, so it looks like they're working fine. Now you'll notice there's a little bit of a glitch going on there. That's probably because I haven't closed Future Pinball after reloading this so many times. So if you see a little goofy thing like that, don't worry about that. Just completely close the table and reload it, and that should clear that up. But you'll see that now it's the ball, it's not making it go unless it's going fast enough, which is on Future Pinball, that would go almost every single time the ball even touches the darn thing. So there you go. It's actually working. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save it one more time. No, we don't need that. All right, so I'm going to reload Future Pinball again. If you're wondering what these are part of the Essentials All-in-One package. They're batch files I made to make it easier to run VR or run desktop or run pin event tables or run with a back box. That way you don't have to go changing Future Pinball settings. So if you don't see those, that's because you haven't installed the latest Future Pinball BAM Essentials package. They're all in there. All right, so let's reload our Knight Rider and let's just take a quick look and see if that still shows up. It's possible I might have to change the setting. Let's see if they'll show up. Nope, they're gone. Okay, good. Much better. All right. There we go. Yay. Much better. Much, much better. That's what we want. We want it so that the ball can actually roll down without setting it off. Good. Excellent. And that's it. That's the main stuff for those. Now, again, you can adjust the angles if you really want, if you feel they're not quite working the way you'd like. We can adjust the diverter strength if you really need to. That's later on in the tutorial. But yeah, so that's basically all we have to do for the slings at this point. So as far as the rubbers on the slings, we will come back and update the ends, but that's a separate section altogether. So we'll come back to the slings to do that part. All right, so now we come to the bumpers. So this is not too much to do here. It's basically just replacing the models, but on some tables you may have to remove old workarounds that some tables might have. I've noticed a few of them have this. So that's what this section here is talking about. So some tables may have these tiny little EM kickers all around the bumper. So the idea is with older Future Pinball physics, these were workarounds to try to get more power in all directions from the bumpers. But with FizX, we don't want those. We don't need them. So if the table has them, you want to remove them. And sometimes there's also like the skirt for the bumper that's actually a drop target item. So both of those things, if the table has them, need to be removed, and the code needs to be removed. So I'm just going to show you that on this table because I know it has it on this table. So there you go. You can see this one only has the EM kickers. Sometimes they'll have a round skirt model that's a drop target. Both have to be removed, and all the code needs to be removed. So the way you do that is basically, so you can see here, it's an EM kicker, right? So each of the three bumpers has a whole bunch of these. So what I do is I just look for that in the script code, okay? So I'll just go search for that. And there you go. You can see in this case, every time this first bumper gets hit, which is this guy here, all of these are going to trigger at the same time. We don't want that, okay? So we're going to remove all of these. Now you have to be careful to make sure that this isn't used elsewhere in the table, right? Now I already did a quick check with all of these before doing that. All right, so that's going to be all of these guys, so we can remove those now. I have to unlock them all, and then I'll delete them all. Same thing with this one. So this is like B24, so that's this guy right here. So I'll just remove all of those. Now again, you have to be careful because if the table has called these anywhere else throughout the rest of the script, then you'll get an error, right? So make sure you double check the rest of the script to be sure that every one of these EM kickers are not being called. All right. Now I did a check ahead of time because that's why I chose this table, because of these as an example. So B33 again, it's right here. So all of these removed. Bye-bye. And then we'll go like there, and then remove them. And there you go. The old ones are removed. We'll just save this to a separate file name. So I just do Knight Rider FizX 1. All right. And actually, here, while you're at it, you can update your table info here if you want, because we're now on FizX, right? So by ROM, and because I'll be updating this later on at some point in the future for a pin event light at a minimum, this is going to be updated more in the future. And I'll just say that. That way you know for sure which table update you're using, right? It's easier to keep track of. All right. I'll turn that down. Alright. Alright, so far so good. It's not complaining. So I gotta find my way back there somehow. Just to see what's gonna go on with the bumpers there. I'm trying to remember how this table goes now. There we go. Ah, I missed it again. Here, let's try that again. Alright, let's just turn that down. Okay, hold on. Yeah, it's a little tricky there. Here, you can always hit F10 to toggle that. There we go. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of a weird design. You know, it's not the most effective design. You can tell that the upper play field was kind of an afterthought, you know, after the fact. So yeah, it's not the most ideal thing for flippers or for bumpers, but now we know that they're actually not screwing up when they get activated, so that's fine. So now that we've removed the old ones again, we can save that if we want. The old EM kickers, I mean. So now what we want to do is we want to replace the models with the new FizX models. So how do we know what that is? So in this case, the bumper is all one model, including the cap. Sometimes the cap is separate, so you have to kind of find which one is the bumper. In this case, it's bumper 1. So what you want to do is you want to have it match the example table in terms of the settings and how it's working. So the example table, as an example here, where's bumper 1? Sure. Okay, so we don't care about the bumper cap, but we do care about the base model. Okay, so we want to change it. It might be hard to, yeah, I can't really see that. Here, I'll make it bigger. You can't see it either, but it's basically the bumper base T1 V3. So that's FizX V3's model. Okay, so what you do is you change this, and this is what these are the models that we imported. Okay, so we change it to that, and we do this, and we do the same for all of them. So the easy way to do it is you just select all 3, and then you can just do all 3 at one time. You can hold shift and click on each. That's how you multi-select in here. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure the settings are all the same as far as everything else. So we don't want these enabled. So take off the trigger skirt, because we're going to be adding a separate trigger skirt, or a separate skirt for the bumper. Okay. And then the settings for strength are going to vary per table. Oh, geez, they have this one down to almost nothing. So we'll just put it like in the middle for now, okay? You can always come back and adjust that, but everything else is, you know, as far as that's concerned, is all cosmetic, but this one needs to be disabled, and you need to make sure you're using the same bumper model. So that's fine. So now we have to add peg models. So I'll show you what I mean by that for the skirts. Gotta remember which layer it's on. Hold on. There. So this is the skirt model. Now you'll see some tables have this added on the table, but as a drop target, and we don't want that. So if you find that, remove that and remove the code in the script that's used along with it. In this case, we don't have that, which is good. So basically, actually, again, you can open up the all-in-one example table and you know, use it. Use its example. Jeez. So do a copy, and then I can just do a paste right there. Right. So now we have the exact one we need. You can change the color as you need, or change the texture if you want. Like, not all tables will have the same stuff. I'll just put the chrome silver in spear mapping. Why not? Do not have it as mark ornamental. Have nothing enabled as that, just in case, because you know, in case someone changes the settings that they shouldn't, you never want anything as an ornamental object. So yeah. So all I do is I just make 3 of these, and then you just find the position of this guy, right? And you just do the same for all of his, right? Because you just want it to line up with that. Same thing for this. So both of these combined will allow the bumpers to act much, much better than they were before, and you don't have the extra items in there that will act all weird, because with the new FizX code, everything acts a little differently, so it's important to do these extra steps. If you're taking, shortcuts, well then you're not actually adding FizX, and you're going to have weird stuff go on. You're going to have problems. It's not going to behave correctly. So just take the extra time, and there you go. Now you could have these, offset a little bit off the play field. If you add a different surface or something like that, that's up to you if you want to do that. So yeah, so there you go. And we can save that again. And then now we can do a quick test. We can visually see if they're there, if they look correct, and we can see if they act correct. Alright, so let's take a look there. Let's just take a look. So it's kind of hard to see under there, but it looks like they're okay. The skirts are there, the bumpers are there. And yeah, you can see them underneath there. And they're lined up as they were originally meant to be, so that's okay. Alright. And it's kind of hard to get a good visual indicator, but alright, I can't tell where where is that ball? Where are you? Oh, it's over here, that's why. Alright. Alright. And there you go. You can see the bumpers are acting correct. Nice uniform power, not acting in a weird, goofy way. Now, in this particular table, you might want to change it up a little bit, but, there you go. The bumpers are updated and working correct. So you may want to adjust the strength per table. It's totally up to you, but yeah, that's basically all you have to do for the bumpers. And they're good to go. Okay, so now we come to what used to be a big pain before. That was updating rubbers throughout the table. Now, as of FizX 3.2, this is no longer a requirement. All the rubbers, so all the rubber bands or any rubber posts in the table, as I said earlier, are automatically working with FizX physics. So you don't have to update anything if you don't want. You can just change the rubber to the 3 preset settings and you'll be good to go, right? However, when it comes to certain situations, such as the slingshots, you're going to want to take a little bit of extra time to do something different for the corners here. Because if you look, you can see there's not many polygons on these bands, right? So they're not going to give the best behavior when the ball bounces off of them, right? The other thing is, this entire band has the same physics settings. So in other words, this elasticity setting is the same all around, right? And that's the case on anything throughout the table. So if you got other bands throughout, somewhere else on the table, it's the same idea, right? So what you want to do is, especially for the slings, is you want to add, like we did before, invisible rubber posts. So that way you can have more control over those areas. You can position them where you want, and you can change your settings. You could have this area here be different than this area here for how bouncy it is, right? So that's what we're going to do here. It's not required, but I highly recommend it, at the very least for the slings, and for maybe some other areas, like on the example table here. Let's see if I can find it. If you have some areas like, around here on rubber bands, I'd recommend at the very least doing those. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So again, you have two options now. You have an option of adding the original diverter model rubber. So that used to be an invisible model that we added, but it was a diverter that acted as a rubber. We could still do that. That's what we did in the older FizX. But now you could do the exact same thing with a normal Future Pinball rubber model. They both do the exact same thing. The only difference between one and the other is that the Future Pinball rubber model only has these 3 main presets, whereas the FizX diverter rubber model has 6 that you can use, and they're set in the code that I'll show you later on. Okay, so just so you understand the difference, they both do the same thing. It's just one has more settings than the other if you want more customization. So what I do, I just go to the example table to make it easier. And let's just see if we can find our dudes here. Okay, so I just look for whichever, there they are. So in this case, they're rubbers. They're Future Pinball rubber models. That is new for FizX 3.2. Okay, so whereas before all the rubbers in the table on older FizX were basically set to almost nothing because we had to replace them with FizX rubbers. Now we can use actual Future Pinball rubbers to do the same thing. So in this case, what I do is I just select all three and unlock if you need to, and then I just copy, and then I go back to our table and I do a paste. Now why do I do that? Because you'll notice they use an invisible texture and they have the right rubber model. It's just quicker and easier that way to do it. You know, that way you don't have to, but pay attention to the settings on the example table to make sure they're the matching and they're correct. So you can try your best to line them up, but you know, it's not going to be perfect. So what you do is you do similar to the example table in that, oh, you don't need to see that, or where's the example table? All right, so just kind of look at the example table to get a rough idea. Okay, so you can see where these guys are set. They're set along so that they line up with the band, but then they're outside just a little bit, so that way the ball is going to hit them and not the band. So that's what we want to do here. Okay, so same idea. You can go like that. Now, if it's not quite big enough, in this case it might not be, then you change it to a little bigger. Okay, you just go like that. There you go. You just, you know, you can fine tune that. I'm not going to go super crazy about this, but, and you do the same idea with all of them. So that way, you know, as you want. You don't actually really have to do this one, to be honest. Actually, I won't even do that one. It's not really needed because the ball's going to come down here anyway. Now this one up here can be a little trickier. So again, you might want to go to a little bit bigger, right? There you go. And that's not so bad because you want the ball to be able to roll seamlessly along here. You don't want the ball to, you know, roll down along the rubber and then bounce off. That's not what you want, okay? And these are invisible again, so you won't see them on the table, right? So if you want, you can just do a copy because these are rubbers, right? So they don't have a name. You don't have to name these. Whereas with the diverters, you know, diverter models have to be named rubber post 1, rubber post 2, rubber post 3. The regular Future Pinball rubber models, which is, you know, like a rubber model here, right? They don't need to be named anything. They're just automatically going to be working with FizX physics, and you just choose their bounciness based on this here, right? So again, try to kind of move it up a little bit, and then you can copy another one down here, and then do that there, all right? And again, try to line up as best you can. Now, especially for these bottom ones, because they're post pass, like that's where your post passes are going to bounce off of. This is something you're going to want to play around with a lot. I'm not going to go into a long, lengthy amount of time on this video because, you know, it's going to be a long enough video as is, right? So these are set to soft. I think both are, yeah. So start with that, see how that works. Okay, so we have those two there. Now you can go all around the table and do the same thing. If there's, you know, any other ones, any other bands around the table that you can think of, I don't know any offhand with this one. Maybe up top here, but I can't see it offhand. So just start with these for now. Save it, and then give it a go. Now again, this is technically an optional step, but for the slings, I highly recommend this. So that's why I'm keeping this as part of the essential portion. All right. All right, so let's just take a look here, all right? All right, so let's just see if that's gonna behave the way we want. That's not too bad. Might have to mess around. Oh, there we go, that's pretty good. So there you go, it's not too bad. Like you can finesse that a lot more than what I'm doing right here. I'm just doing quick tests, but you can see the rubbers are at least acting more appropriately. Yeah, see, there you go. The positioning is a big deal for these particular ones, right? So you're gonna have to play around with that because the ideal is what you want is you want it to hit up here and then kind of go across towards here, right? You don't want it to kind of fly up And you know, it's a finessing act. Try looking at other tables that I've updated to get an idea. So again, you know, it's one of those things you're gonna have to kind of play around with. There you go, you can see that. Yeah, so again, and you want to change the rubber settings if you want. And you can see up here as well, you got that bouncing on its own. So those two, once they're in place, you can just finesse them any way you want. And I don't know if there's any other ones around the table that I want to change necessarily. Because see, all those rubber posts are automatically going to be working. You may want to adjust their elasticity setting now because FizX changes that. So it may be a little different than it was before. These posts here, same thing. You may want to change their elasticity. Same with those guys. Okay, so up here you might want to put, at the end of these bands, you might want to put something up there. And it looks like there's slingshots up there as well. So again, you can come back to this, update those slingshots with smaller diverters, add the posts on there, add the code that's needed, and then that will be properly updated as well. I'm not going to do that in this video because, you know, I don't want to make this video super long. I'm just trying to show the main essential examples for what you guys need to do. So yeah, so I think that's the main bits there. I can't see what's underneath there very well, but actually, yeah, you might need to do something under there as well. If they have any rubbers, I don't think they do. It looks like they don't. Nope, I don't think there's any there. So, all right. And sometimes the plunger lane might have something. Nope. All right. Oh, that little guy down there, you know, you might want to change him, his elasticity, his settings, but yeah. So there you go. So again, you can go around and change all of these to either soft, medium, or hard. So again, if you were to add a diverter instead of that, so that would be, if you look in the example table, these are the diverter examples. They look exactly the same. It's just one's a rubber, but you don't name it. It'll just work with these settings. Whereas with this, if it's a diverter, it has no settings, right? So the way it works is based on this name, you go into the FizX general settings that we had before. And that's what this is. So basically, whatever rubber post type here, the number, and then you put it to equal whatever this is here, that's referring to these FizX rubber settings here, okay? So that's why with a diverter, you have 6 settings, and it's any of these. With a Future Pinball rubber, you have only the soft, medium, and hard, as this is telling you the equivalent here, which is mimicking what we had on the table here, okay? So that's the only difference between the two. So go throughout your whole table and update it on all the bands on the corners. Highly recommended. You don't have to, but if you want to have different behavior here than here and here, it's highly recommended. So that's all you have to do for that part. You know, I'm not going to go super in depth on that. That's really, yeah. And that's what I just talked about right here. Okay. So again, you know, if you add a diverter model, rubber post 1, rubber post 2, rubber post 3, is their names in there? If you want to use that for more settings, and then you just add them in here with the right number to match, and then you use whatever rubber settings from up here that you want. All right. And that's it for that part. So yeah, so that's basically the optional step for rubber posts. Not required, but highly recommended. All right, so now we've got a lot of the big chunk of stuff done for, you know, FizX. You know, there's still a lot of fine tuning and finessing and all that has to be done, and I'm not going to go through all that in this video because it's already going to be long enough as is. But now you come to the point where you may have to update other parts of the table. So things about like Future Pinball's normal physics, the default physics for all items, all of that is contained in this section here, the FizX XML section. So that's part of the code that we add to the table. So all these settings have been set up to work with FizX as a base start. Some things you cannot change. If you do, you're going to have problems. You're going to mess up FizX and other things. Some things you can change if you need to make the table work correctly with FizX. Do not change FizX to work with the table. You have to make the table work with FizX. Make sure you understand that, because if you don't do that, you're wasting your time. okay? And I'm wasting my time. So take the time to understand that, you have to, make sure you go with that philosophy, right? So these are the settings that you can change, okay, in this section. I'll show you where it's at, but you can change the bumper impulse, the auto plunger, the kicker impulse, the plunger mass, spin disc, EM kicker, vary target. So those settings are in here, okay? So you can change their values only if you need to, all right? You may not need to at all, but some things you may have to. Like, for example, this one kicker here was being a pain in the butt. So I may have to either adjust the value here in the actual editor. I may have to change the strength, for example, or I may have to come back here, make an adjustment, and then adjust this to make it work, okay? So that could be the case with the auto plunger. That could be the case with any kicker on the table. Bumpers are usually okay, as we just saw, but you may have to. And other variable things, but it's usually the kickers in the auto plunger that you may have to change. Yeah, so that's basically what this section is all about. So I'll show you where that is on the table. So basically, if you go in the FizX section at the very top, all right, so this is the top of the table. You just scroll down a little bit, and a little bit more, a little bit more. Once you get past the flipper settings, there you go. You're in the FizX XML section, and there you go, right in there, okay? So I know for a fact that this VUC was not working correctly, and we're at max power, so we're going to have to increase the power for that in this section. Now, understand, if you change the slope of the table later on down the line, that's going to have an effect on everything else, which may affect your vertical up kickers, which may affect this. So understand, everything's connected, right? That's why it's important to do this stuff in the order that we show you. All right? Like, for example, this kicker here may not kick the ball out enough, depending on what settings it's using, right? So these are all the things that you have to kind of play around with. Other kickers may kick the ball out just fine, but it may not kick it out far enough to bounce off a flipper as it was originally intended to, right? So those are all the things you're going to have to play around with. So in this case, the vertical up kicker, so that's going to be VUC impulse, right? So you can just do this if you want, and then boom, there it is, right? So by default, it's at 2400. So I'm just going to update it a little bit. So I'm going to put it to 26. All right, so that's going to allow our VUC up here to kick that ball up just a little bit better. All right, so I'm going to save this, and then we'll go see if it works a little better. It might go super fast. Again, sometimes you have to change parts of the table, like models, for example, or the ramp shapes, or the number of wires on a wire guide. Like, those are the kind of things you may have to change. So that's way beyond the scope of this video. You know what I mean? I'm basically all about giving you the essentials to add all this stuff, get FizX working, get FLEEP working, but rebuilding the whole table I'm not going to do on this video, right? So let's see if that works better now. All right, let's just go here. Oh, geez, I'm stuck in here. Hold on. I could use ball controller. I just want to see how it goes from a flipper. Well, there you go. Here. Okay, screw it. Okay, so it definitely gets it up there well enough. It's pretty strong, though, so it might be too strong, right? Let's see here. Yeah, so I mean, it's not bad. I mean, if you're happy with that, then that's okay. Let's see, there's another one right there, another VUC. Let's see if I can try that there. So you have to kind of play around with everything on the table, right? So I might reduce it just a little bit, depending on the other one. Oh, geez, come on, guys. I want to get over there. I don't want this video taking forever. All right. Come on. I just want to... Because when you use ball controller, things act differently than they do in normal gameplay, so... geez, I might have to take a look at that rubber placement. Might have to adjust that. There you go. All right. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll try moving that down just a little bit, taking a quick test, and see if that's okay. All right, so let's just see if it's crazy fast. Okay, that seems to be a little bit better. Alright, so that's not too bad. And how's this guy gonna go? Alright, so he seems to be okay. So again, you might have to play around with that. Every table's gonna be a little bit different. But that seems okay. Alright. So there you go. So you may have to adjust other things like the auto plunger and other stuff. It every table's built differently. There is no universal way to do this stuff, guys. So I can only show you examples, but you may find a table that has some weird stuff on it. So I'm going to save that now because I'm pretty happy with that. All right. So that basically that's that section. That may take some time to work with, but it should be okay. That section should be fine. Okay, so at this point, you should have a lot of the table running pretty good. You know, most of it should be running pretty well. You may have to go back and finesse. That's an ongoing thing, you know. Making a table perfect with FizX, that takes time. Anyone who tells you that you can do this stuff instantly and quickly, they're bullshitting it, you know. Like adding the stuff is quick and easy. Getting a table perfected, that takes time, right? And I'm not going to do that in a video here. But at this point, you can now start taking a look at your ball sounds, like your ball rolling and volume, sound level, and everything else. So if you go to that section near the top, it's right near the top here. There we go. Most of these, so this is your ball hit sound. So basically this is the volume of every ball hit sound that's automatically generated by FizX. You shouldn't have to change any of these. Most of these are fine. I like to have this set to 3 because I like to amplify all these sounds a little bit because I like to actually hear them. You may not, because you know in a cabinet having these sounds louder is a benefit. You may not like that, so you can always put this to 1 if you prefer. And you can also, if you don't want it to auto generate the sounds, then those are right here. You can disable whichever ones you want. How you name items on the table will determine what gets used for the kind of ball hit sounds they are. So if you want an item that's not normally a rubber item, you can name it that way to make it act like a rubber. You know, so that's what this whole section here is about. Now this one here, ball rolling sound settings. So this one is the one that you have to pay attention to. You may have to change this here to a different play music channel. The ball rolling in Future Pinball works with play music, and there's 8 channels to use, and if the table is already using one of those channels, then the ball rolling is going to disrupt that, and you don't want that. Okay, so what I do here is I go and I do a search for play music. Okay, now in this case we're using channel 8. Usually safe for most tables, but it depends on how the table was made. So I'm going to look for every instance of play music to see if it comes up with anything except for now this is the all-in-one code, so you can skip this part. That's fine. All right. So for example, play music 1, that means it's using channel 1, right? So that's fine. Okay. So if we don't see any that say 8, then we can use channel 8, no problem. Now the only thing you have to be careful about is this number can be set to a variable, so you have to be careful. If it's using a variable, you then have to check that variable to see if that's being changed to the same value that you're using for ball rolling, right? But so far, it looks like we're okay. Some tables, though, use every channel. All right, I think we're okay. Let's take a look. All right. There we go. All right, so channel 8 is fine. All right, so now you have your volume amount, right? You have the PUP volume and you have the Future Pinball ball rolling volume. You know, if PUP SSF is disabled, then Future Pinball sounds are used automatically, right? Now that's this up here. Okay, so right now it's I have it disabled because for this video I wanted you guys to hear the Future Pinball sounds. I recommend doing that. I recommend having all these disabled to start, and then check all your Future Pinball sounds, make sure they're all happy and working, and then if you are choosing to do the optional extra steps of adding PinMechSound commands supporting PUP SSF, then you can do that. If you're not going to take those extra steps, this has to be set to false, okay? And same thing with this. Make sure they're both set to false if you're not going to take that extra step for PinMechSound commands. Even though you'll get some PUP SSF sounds, and you'll get the ball rolling sound, you won't get all of them. So it's going to be, but that'll result in you'll miss sounds from the flippers and everything. So don't either do all of it or do none of it. That's the way I see it. All right, so this section's fine though. That should be fine. So let's just start up the table. Make sure I'm pretty sure the ball rolling was okay. So we'll just ball rolling is set to music. So if your music's not loud enough, you're not going to hear it.
Welcome aboard the night sound.
Now, let's see. Okay, I can barely hear it, but it is there. That music is really loud. Yeah, you can hear it. So if you want to increase that, so that's a Future Pinball ball rolling max. So I'll just put it at 1.0, just so you guys can hear it nice and easy. And luckily, this is a fast-loading table.
Welcome aboard the night sound.
Yeah, you can hear it better now. There we go. All right, that's not too bad. But yeah, the music in this table is very loud. All right, look at that. There you go. Okay, so there you go. So if you're happy with that, then you can save the table again. And there you go. We're done with that section. All right, so we're at kind of a really big point now. We're kind of at the point where we have the essentials all pretty much added to the table. Like, if you went through all the steps and did everything completely, like, for example, I didn't yet do those upper slings as an example, right? I'm not going to do that in the video, but if I took the time to do the upper slings, the extra bands, the extra rubber posts up there, if I wanted to, I don't have to, but I can if I want, then everything should be at a point where it's completely working right now. Okay, if you're at this point in the tutorial, you should be having a fully working table. It may not be absolutely perfect, but it should be fully working with full FizX, no problem. All right. So as I say here, you're going to want to save the table, sometimes close it out completely like I had to earlier, right? And then reload the table to make sure that everything's working correctly. Because sometimes when you close it, you exit a table and you start again, exit and start again, things can get a little weird and wonky. So you almost always want to completely close Future Pinball and then open it again and then reload the table again. I'm not doing that in this video because it would take forever if I did that every time. So at this point, what should be working? So again, FizX should be pretty good. The ball hit sounds everywhere should be working as far as that's concerned. Ball rolling sounds again should be working. So all that's good. If you have Pinup Player installed and you have the PUP pack installed, then and you have it enabled in the table script, then all the ball hit sounds are going to work through PUP SSF and the ball rolling is going to work, but nothing else will. Like the flippers, the slings, the bumpers, none of that's going to work through PUP SSF, okay? And so that's what this is talking about right here. Also, PUP SSF's volume is very low, so you may not notice the sounds necessarily compared to Future Pinball's game sounds, which are much louder. I just turned them down for this video. Trust me, they're much, much louder compared to PUP sounds. So that's something to keep in mind. So you may have to adjust Future Pinball's volume like I've been doing in the video by doing this for the sounds and music. Again, though, that's only if you're actually going to take the steps to support PUP SSF on this table, okay? So if you're at this point and you're pretty happy with that, really, it's about going through and finessing everything at this point. I'm trying to think of what else we might have to do here. So I think at this point, if you're very, very happy with everything, you got it dialed in perfectly. You're at a point now where you've got FizX on there. You got everything essential on there, and it will work and run fine with Future Pinball sounds and Future Pinball ball rolling, no problem. So that's where we're at right now, okay? Okay, guys, so you've done a hell of a lot of testing. You've gone through the whole table over and over again. You've updated everything for any rubbers or anything else you want to do at this point, and you're quite happy with the table, right? You're happy with how it plays. You're happy with the ball rolling. You're happy with the FizX generated ball hit sounds that are using FLEEP sounds. So if you've gone through all that and you're quite happy, at this point you could say, okay, I'm happy with the table for Future Pinball regular use. That's as far as I want to go. If that's your decision, you can absolutely do that. If you do not want to take the extra steps to add PinMechSound, which will add DOF support and PUP SSF support for everything on the table, that would be the flippers, the slings, bumpers, kickers, auto plunger, drain, if you don't want to take that extra step, I personally recommend you do it. It's not that long and it makes your table way better. If you don't want to take that extra step, that's fine. So now you have to make the choice of what you don't want to keep enabled and what you don't want to support. And that's what Section 5 is. Disable the features you won't use or support. So if you're not going to add PinMechSound commands, then you need to make sure both DOF is disabled and PUP SSF is disabled. That's very simple. Those are at the very top right here. Okay? I currently have them disabled because I haven't added PinMechSound commands yet. So for me, if you're not adding PinMechSound commands, then keep them disabled, okay? Because you'll have missing sounds if you don't. All right, so if you're fine with that, then just make sure these are disabled and make a note to not enable them, that you haven't added support for them on this table. Because someone will go in and add it or enable those and be like, hey, stuff's not working, So if you're happy with that, that's fine, okay? Now launch DMDX. This is something JLou added to the code. This is only if you want to, for cabinet players who have a DMD display, if you want to launch DMDX directly from the table, you can, and you would have to enable that feature here. I recommend keeping it disabled unless you go to this thread here. So if you go to this link, this is JLou's tutorial on how to make that work with Future Pinball, okay? So you'd have to follow these steps to make sure it's all working, but don't enable this. You will get errors if you enable it without taking the extra steps that he lays out on this page, okay? So if you're not going to do that, then keep it disabled. Most cabinet players don't want that because they're going to launch it with their front end, but if you don't use a front end, then you can make that work. I have extra batch files that I use here that are part of my essentials package that's coming out, and you'll be able to launch it with this without making a change to the table at all. So that's totally up to you. I just wanted to make sure you understand not to enable this. I even tell you in here, don't do it unless you take the extra steps. So, if you want to do that, go ahead. Ball rolling sounds. Now, again, you can disable this if you want. It's up to you. Some people don't like them or find them annoying. So all you got to do is set this to false. And that's it. They won't be used after that point. Or if you want to add your own ball rolling method in there, or if you want to add additional like smoke ball rolling back in or whatever like that. Bottom line is if you don't like this the way this one does it, or if it's a problem, it might be a problem on some tables. Like you might have some older EM tables that have a bazillion balls, captive balls all over the table, which will then make this not work correctly. You may want to disable this and then put your own method in there. So that's why the option's there. You can disable it super easy, okay? So, and that's it. Those are the three main ones that you can disable. And then if you're happy, then you're good to go. You don't have to do anything more. So I just want to make sure you understand that. Now there's some optional extra stuff we can do with FizX that I will do in this video. But then the PinMechSound stuff, I'll do that in a separate video, okay? Okay, guys, so you have a fully working table. It's all dialed in. You're super happy. But there's also extra options you can add in. Now, one of these I didn't put in as a requirement because not everyone cares about it or needs it. And it's, it's a great tool, but it's not required. So this is the FizX tweaker tool. So basically what it is it's a DMD that can appear on the table, and it will allow you to change your settings in real time to see how the different FizX settings work on the table. It won't adjust your script. It'll allow you to change the settings in real time, but then you'll have to write down your settings and then add that to the script afterwards when you exit the table, right? But it's a handy tool to allow you to try different settings in real time while playing. So before you used to have to add the DMD on there, you don't have to anymore. So that is an option. Okay, so I'll actually do that real quick. So basically, if you want to use the FizX tweaker tool, you go to the translate editor and you basically add a HUD DMD. Where are we? Oh, sorry, this one here, a HUD DMD up here. Yeah, just move that out a little. Put it in the top corner or wherever you feel like. And then you name it FizX DMD. Okay? So you do that. And then what you need to do is, I'll bring the script over here. And then what you need to do is you need to go to that section down below. So you go to the FizX Tweaker Start section. Again, you can copy and paste, right? If you're not sure how to find this stuff, just copy it from there and paste it in here to try to find it easier. So you have to do a couple things. First, we need to add, this is the Tweaker Start right here, okay? You just select this section here. You copy it, just like it's telling you here. And you just look for Future Pinball key press sub. And that's this right here. So this sub is basically anytime we press a key, this determines what happens. Okay? So all you got to do is go to the very top of it. Just the very top of it. And then you just paste that in there. And then take out the comma. So now these aren't just comments. They're actual code now. Okay? So what this means is if you push the up, down, left, right keys, or that will change settings. And if you push the F key, that will toggle the DMD to appear and disappear. Okay? So that's all you really had to do there. Now I'm going to go back to the main section of code there for FizX. And what you got to do is you got to go back up here for the testing tools, and you have to enable it if you want to use it. Okay? So you just hit true, and then that's all you got to do for the FizX tweaker tool. Now, if you want to have this profile change key, you'd have to set this to true as well. So what all that does is it changes the profile for you. If you want to toggle the profile, it's not really needed, but if you want to change the profile, then you'd have to come down here. I don't know if, yeah, okay, so it doesn't show it in the tutorial, but you'd have to come down here to the FizX profile section, and then you add this in there, just like we did with the other one. Because that allows you to then use the G key to toggle the profiles. Okay? And so now both of these are enabled, and then you can test it out. All right, so once the table is loaded up, if you want to use the tweaker tool, you just hit F, and she'll show up. So then you can just toggle through every setting, and the flipper settings, and the general settings, and you can just change it in real time while playing. Okay, so that it's not meant to replace your code because it won't change your code, right? This is just a real time, adjustment that you can do for almost everything. Yeah, and then if you make some changes, for example, let's say I make this, and I change that, it shows what the value was when the table starts up. But then I was like, oh, I screwed up everything, but I want to go back to where I was. Well, then you just go down to here, and then you reset, boom, and then they're back to where they were. And that's all that is. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward stuff. Let's see if the table slope. Let's go the table slope and see if that, we'll go to a crazy high value and see if that actually takes effect or not. Sometimes it does right away. Sometimes you have to wait till a ball is created. But so this is a ridiculously high slope. So let's see what happens here. Oh, yeah, ball is definitely heavier. Oh yeah. Okay, so you can see that right away. So yeah, that's definitely not normal. So let's put that back. Here, you know what? We'll do it the quick way. There you go. All right, so we put it back now. It made okay. So see, that's a perfect example. You have to wait for the ball to be destroyed, and then now it should be back to normal. Yeah, there you go. Now she's back to normal. Now let's check that flipper on that ramp again. Okay, so again, that might be something you might want to play around with more. I haven't done that on here. I haven't fully tuned the whole table. So you may want to have, you know, more omega than what I have, right? Like maybe I want to go up to 5. Let's just check that. See now that makes that shot super easy now, right? So you might want that. So there you go. And then if you push F, it'll go away. Or if you want to toggle the profile, you push G. And then now it's on custom flippers, whatever settings you had for that. Or the original flippers, which are JLou flippers, right? And that's it. And then hit F again to make it go back. Now again, you wouldn't want to have this enabled on a table that you're going to share with others, right? Because people may use those keys for something else. So make sure those options are disabled here before you upload a table, right? So and that's basically it for that. It's an option, right? It's not required. You don't have to add it like you did before. So just okay. So here's if you want to the next option you can use for FizX. Now this is something we used to have to do on older versions. It used to be a requirement that we had to basically put invisible walls in front of all the rubber bands to give them their own actual settings. So that way they'll you'll be able to control the rubber here versus the rubber here versus the rubber here, and then it'll also allow the post in this section here to be different, because sometimes you want this to have a different bounciness than this, right? And also because the older FizX used to basically make all rubbers do nothing almost, right? They were ineffective, where with 3.2 and higher, now all the rubbers automatically use FizX physics. So now this section is no longer needed. But if you want to have that, you absolutely can. Now I'm not going to do it in the video here. I'm not going to add it, but I'll show you the example table here. Like you can see that right here, like where he added it. He just put these here as an example. He didn't have to. And rubber band 1. And the material type has to be rubber. It's a wall that's invisible, so you use an invisible texture with it. Top texture, same thing, make it invisible. And name it rubber band 1, rubber band 2, rubber band 3. Make sure the material type is 3. And then you add it in here for rubber band 1 and 2. And then you give the setting that you want in here. And then because of that, you have 6 settings you can use instead of Future Pinball's rubber, which only gives you 3, right? So that's an option. You don't have to use that, but it is handy if you want to have custom control over all sections of a rubber band, okay? So yeah, that's another option there. So you don't have to use that. And what's the next one here? Yes, drop target wall. So this was something we used to have to do. You don't have to do it anymore. It's basically all the drop targets or regular targets now automatically use FizX code and FizX physics, and they will use their settings based on what is in here, okay? So they automatically will use that, every single one of them. You don't have to add anything whatsoever. However, if you wanted to add, like to use those settings for a certain table item or a table wall, or there is a specific toy, who knows what, right? Then you could add a wall to cover it, just like we used to with the drop targets, and then you could name it DT1, DT2, DT3, and it will still act the same way as a drop target wall collision or a target wall collision will, based on these settings here, okay? It's an option. You don't have to use it, but it's there if you still want to use it. And yeah, so that's it. that's it for all of our options now for FizX. Basically, if you're at this point, guys, and you're not going any further, you're basically done for everything you have to add and do, as long as you've tuned up everything and followed through with everything. The only other options you have, which I personally highly recommend, is adding PinMechSound commands. So what that is PinMechSound is basically a way of adding surround sound feedback and DOF automatically to flipper, slings, bumpers, kickers, all the mechanical items on the table. It does require more work, and that's why that's going to be a separate video. But it's an option, a highly recommended one, but you don't have to do it. All right, so I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. You can always come back and do it afterward, and then make your table way better, and everyone gets to benefit from it. So again, that's an option that I'll cover in the second video. So I guess there's really not much else to say in this video. I'm sure this video has gone for quite a while, but you know what? If I didn't explain anything to you guys, I could get this done in a tiny amount of time compared to the length of this video, right? So adding the stuff takes very little time. Making the whole table updated, like for the slings, the bumpers, adds a little bit more time, but it's not that much time. It really isn't. Once you've done this once or twice, it's so quick. It really is. And then, taking the extra step for rubber posts, on the slingshots, I would do it. Doesn't take much time. The rest of the table, that's totally up to you. You know what I mean? I would highly recommend it. It's definitely a benefit because you wind up having, if I can show it on here, there you go. You wind up having a smooth, round surface for the ball to bounce off of instead of just, a few small polygons like they had before. So, taking those extra steps that are, optional, it's worth it. They don't take that long. The rest I'll cover in the next video. So I guess that's about it. I don't want to keep going on too long. You may have to make adjustments to the table, like some of the geometry. Some of the collisions of some of the items like targets and that may wind up being better. I did that with RoboCop, for example. I actually edited the models for that, for the ramp and the targets, which made a huge difference. But every table is going to be different. Don't assume after you've added all this stuff that that's all you needed to do. You may have to make changes to the table itself as well, guys, to do it properly, to make it play really good. Okay, but it's worth the effort. It's not long to add FizX, but it takes a while to tweak it to perfection. That takes way longer, and that's not just with FizX. That's with any table with a FizX update, right? So that's all I gotta say. So thanks for watching this whole video, guys. Tune in for the next one. I highly recommend you guys follow up with that to make your table sound so much better all over the table, and cabinet players and VR players will love you because they'll have feedback to use with their cabinets or their pin stubbies or their surround sound feedback setups, or anyone who has a home theater setup will benefit because now you get 5.1 sound. So tune in for that part 2 video for the PinMechSound updates. So thanks for tuning in, guys. See you later. Bye.